Hey Bible lovers, I'm Tim Nichols and I'm here to bring you your Nichols Words, and today we're going to do a follow-up video on the Cepher. Now let's take a look at some of the issues that I have with it. I've got a lot of comments on the previous video from a lot of people in support, and there were a lot of critics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer some questions that I got. Number one, what about the book of Jubilees, the book of Jasher, and the book of Enoch being either mentioned or quoted in the Bible? Just because something is quoted in the Bible does not necessarily mean that it is inspired. So let's kind of go through a quick list. Number one, let's consider the manuscript evidence on the three books that I just mentioned. Number one, the Dead Sea Scrolls did pull up some of the book of Jubilees, but it's fragmentary and it is in Hebrew, so it does appear that Jubilees may at one time have been an inspired work, but we don't have the original documents. The most complete document that we have is only a few hundred years old, and that's just not going to get the job done, and there are two of them, and they're in disagreement. Also, you see no quotes from the book of Jubilees that are of note in the Old Testament or the New Testament. That is the same for Enoch. It is quoted in Jude, but it's very scant. There's not a whole lot to it. And all of these just really don't have the manuscript evidence that addresses what we would expect of something to be included in the Bible. For the Old Testament and the New Testament, we have the Septuagint, we have the Masoretic, we have multiple Hebrew ancient scrolls from 200 BC and beyond. We have so much manuscript evidence to support the Old and New Testament as we have it today. The second thing is, as I've already mentioned, there just aren't very many Old or New Testament quotes of note of any of the apocryphal books or these extras that they've added in the Cepher. Then we also have, just because it's quoted in the Bible, Paul also quotes Cretan poets. So we're going to say that that's inspired as well. So just because Paul quoted ancient Jewish literature does not necessarily mean he's acknowledging that it's inspired. This would go for Jude. This would also go in the Old Testament as well. The book of Jasher just simply seems to be a historical book of songs of war and different war stories, not necessarily inspired. So the evidence that these works are inspired simply aren't there. And then we also have the fact that if it's ancient and Jewish, it also does not necessarily mean it's inspired. There's ancient Jewish literature that tells us that there's this myriad of angels that we have no evidence of. There's also ancient Jewish literature that promotes Kabbalah and this weird mystic Judaism that we know is not generally accepted. All of this reads much like Second Temple literature. The book of Enoch does, the book of Jubilees does, and the book of Jasher does. The book of Jubilees actually seems to have some knowledge of the exile period, which would shoot Moses out of the saddle. It would be impossible that he was the author. So the book of Jubilees is probably most likely either a forgery or a retelling of old history, never meant to be inspired. And then we also have the inclusion of Acts chapter 29, which is insane in my mind. This is the thing that bothers me the most. There is no Acts 29 anywhere in any of the ancient manuscripts, or even some of the manuscripts up into the 1500s. It's not until the 18th, 19th century that they find this scroll in Turkey, or this page in Turkey that claims to be the 29th chapter of Acts. And then when you look inside of it, it has Paul blessing Druid priests. It has Pilate's blood mingled in the water, and it has Jesus coming in a vision, verifying that the Pontius Pilate went to heaven because he washed his hands of the situation. It's just, it doesn't make sense to include this in the scripture. And Dr. Pigeon's reasoning is 2 or 3 witnesses. And one of the witnesses is supposed to be the Muratorian fragment. Another witness is Paul saying he wanted to go to Spain. And then the third witness being Acts 29. It's spurious at best, and there's only one copy. So that's just not how ancient manuscripts work. An ancient manuscript is verified by multiple copies. He has these transliterations that just don't make any sense. Even Cepher is misspelled. It is actually supposed to be spelled S-E-F-E-R. All these transliterations are just off, and he has a lexicon that explains them all. And there is no Hebrew scholarship that agrees with his spellings or his pronunciations of these things. And then lastly, his obsession with the divine name being Yahuwah. There is no evidence that we know how to say the second syllable of the Tetragrammaton, known as the Yad-Veh-Vav-He, or YHWH. So to say that they have this secret knowledge on knowing how to say it, also there's some people that follow him that say California is Israel. It's just bizarre. And I would consider them a cult, and probably in the same vein as the Hebrew Roots movement. Now, are they the Hebrew Roots movement? No. But the reason they want to include all these documents is to bring us back under the law, which is something Jesus liberated us from. Now, let me give Dr. Pigeon some credit. there are some interesting things that he did point out. Number one, the Aleph and the Tav is all throughout the Old Testament, and it is left untranslated, and he kind of just leaves it there. So when you see these throughout there untranslated, his argument is that this is pointing to Jesus saying, I'm the Aleph and the Tav, because he says Jesus spoke Hebrew and not Greek. Instead of the Alpha and the Omega, he said the Aleph and the Tav. That's interesting. One other thing I'm going to give him some credit for that is super interesting is the Hebrew hieroglyphs. This seems to be at least somewhat factual. I don't know how accurate all of this is, but it is, Hebrew is an ancient language, and it was at one time a pictograph, and it does seem likely that each of these pictographs had a meaning. Now, his argument is going to be that each letter points to Jesus, so that each word points to Jesus. Is that possible? Yes. But do I think that Dr. Pigeon and the Cepher publishing group has unlocked some ancient secret? No. No, I think that's a ridiculous assertion, and I also believe that's one of the markings of a cult. So this is my opinion. I'm going to leave the comments on this open. I've also opened the comments again on my previous video, so feel free to shoot me your questions, but please, let's not be hostile. I'm going to delete any hostile comments because I don't want you all fighting back and forth in the comments. So anyhow, there you have it. Keep calm. Jesus on this, your Nicholsworth.